I'm just putting up a few videos to go back to statistics, kind of not from the start, but give a little bit of an overview and then go back into the inferential statistics that maybe some people are missing for. So if we just look at our statistics, what do we do? In statistics, we normally collect some data. We want to kind of just divide that up into numerical data and categorical data. And then just create some questions that will generate numerical data. Like I could go ask people, what height are you? What age are you? How many meals do you eat a day? How many times do you train a week? Etc, etc. Categorical data is when you ask questions on a survey that generate not number data but word data. So things that would ask that, like what color hair do you have? What's your favorite team? What's your favorite color? What month were you born in? All that sort of stuff. So if you were to survey the population and you were to get the mean of the population, so that's the symbol that we use for mean of the population, or if you were to do, so that's your numerical data, or if you were to do categorical data, you would be getting the proportion or the percentage of the population, maybe that, like, that support Man United. So I guess I'll go back again here. So if we went for numerical data, we could survey the whole population and we could ask them, what height are you? Now, if you were to use any of your three measures of centre, mean, mode, median, which would you use? And you would have discussed this at junior cert. So for numerical data, which measure of centre would you use? You can use the mean. You can add up all your heights, if that's what I'd ask them. Add up all the heights and divide by the number of people that you have surveyed. You could get the mode. Mode is the most common height in the people that you've surveyed. And you could get the median. Median is when you put them in order from lowest to highest in numerical order and cross off first, last, first, last, first, last until you get to your middle number. So when it's numerical data, and again, I'm just going through this because we have discussed this and thought about this since junior cert, which measure of centre is the best for numerical data? And as long as there's no outliers, your mean is the best measure of centre for numerical data. So that's why if you survey the population, we call it mu. And if we surveyed a sample, that we'd have to give it a different name because we need to be able to distinguish between whether we surveyed the whole population or if we just surveyed a sample of the population. So I'll come back to this in a minute as to what the symbols are for if we surveyed a sample, but the concepts are still the same. So numerical data, the best measure of centre would be the mean. So if we surveyed for numerical data the whole population, we would talk about the mean of the population. That would be the parameter. Actually, I was going to call it a statistic, but parameters. So these are usually the two parameters that we use when we're surveying the population. If we do look at categorical data and you ask people, oh, what team do you support? Then which measure of centre is the best in that situation? Well, can you get the mean of words? Like, can you add up words? No, you can't. So the mean is out. Can you get the mode? Well, yeah, like you talk about, oh, the most common team that people support is United. And you wouldn't just say that. You'd say probably, oh, 80% of the population support Man United. Well, it's probably not going to be that high. Maybe 20% of the population support Man United. Median. Can you put your categorical data in order from highest to lowest? No, you can't. So the only option for categorical data is the mode. And we go into detail and we say, oh, the proportion or the percentage of the population that liked Man United was 20%. So it's the mode for categorical data, and this is why we call it P, the proportion of the population or the percentage of the population. I hope that explains it. If it doesn't, feel free to ask more questions. Or obviously maybe somebody else can explain it a little bit better. I'm sure there's plenty of information on YouTube about it or in your book. So we have the option of surveying the whole population, or we survey a sample. If we surveyed a sample, we'll get what's called a statistic. Now you're used to that word. You're not used to the word parameter. And the reason that you're not used to this word is because we rarely survey the whole population. You know, we do a census maybe every however many years, but it's rare that we have the time, the resources, and maybe just even the patience to survey the whole population. So if you survey the whole population, you'll get one of these two parameters, depending on the data you were collecting. And if you surveyed a sample of the population, you will collect a statistic. If the sample was surveyed on numerical data, you will get the mean of the sample. We call it just X bar. And if you surveyed a sample of people and you asked them data that, you know, a categorical data was generated through the survey, then we call it P hat. And that's the proportion of the sample. And it's good to get familiar with these symbols. And maybe even just try and create some examples yourself, because obviously, like, you know, I'm creating examples here, but it's only when it means something to you that any of this information will be of benefit. So that's just the general overview of even just, you know, why maybe in first year you're even talking about numerical and categorical data, why you were talking about population and sample. So then you would have gone on in second and third year to talk about your measures of centre. And probably you would have talked about your measures of spread or measures of variation. That's just how spread out the data is. Your three measures of variation that you look at are your range, your interquartile range, and your standard deviation. And you can just have a look back at that if you want to make sure you can calculate all three of those things. This is probably the most common one that gets used, is your standard deviation. You can just figure out how to calculate it on your calculator. And then we go on again to look at your measures of relative standing. Where you stand relative to everybody else. And we look at percentiles. And we look at Z-scores. So I'm going to do a video on Z-scores just to get an idea of it, and to make sure that you're happy with it and that you have a good basis for when you go on to inferential statistics. So this is kind of your overview of it all, and just send on questions. Sorry, it's It's a different sheet there behind it. Just send on questions if you have any to do with that. Maybe practice some questions as well, or just look up real life examples just to try and really understand it.